Thanks so much for taking the space to be here together tonight with other folks to learn and share with each other. To say that a lot is going on both tonight, but also during this time would be an understatement. So we really appreciate y'all coming out and being together. My name is Paige, and I'm an organizer with the Rural Organizing Project. It's so wonderful. I see a bunch of familiar faces on the call. Hi, and I see a bunch of new faces I don't recognize. So if you're new here, welcome. We're so glad to have you. So a little bit about who we are at ROP, just for the new folks here. The ROP, or Rural Organizing Project, is a network of over 70 autonomous volunteer-led groups who are organizing for human dignity and democracy across rural and small town Oregon. So if you're, any folks here a member of a human dignity group? I see a couple, I think. Yeah, if you're a member, just wave. If you're part of, yeah, oh, awesome. That's so awesome. So our mission at ROP is really to strengthen the skills and resources and vision of our human dignity groups so that y'all can continue to keep doing the long-term work of organizing and continue being a vibrant source of democracy in your own communities. So our role is to support and build up capacity for that long-term change. So we really wanted to bring the space for this call together tonight for a couple reasons, and I'll just say at first we are recording this call. I know that there's a lot of things happening tonight. This is a bad night for a lot of folks, so a lot of folks wanted to be here and couldn't, so we're going to send out a recording of this call along with a couple of other resources that folks are going to mention along the way. So just putting that out there. But so we wanted to have space for this call tonight for a couple of reasons. We know that so many of you have been working long-term and keeping people safe in so many different ways across your communities. And so we really wanted to use this call tonight to continue to lean into one another and use this space as a moment to inform our collective work together and over the next few weeks, which are going to be so crucial. So we also really wanted to get together and share strategies that rural Oregonians are already using to make sure that dropping off ballots is both fun, but also safe for everyone. So everyone who can vote can, and to also share strategies about accurate information about voting and how folks are using strategies to keep temperatures low or as low as they can be and make sure our neighbors can still vote in case of possible voter intimidation that happens in this November. We also want to problem solve and share about, what obstacles you and your communities are running into when you're doing voter education work. So we're going to talk a little bit about what barriers you're running into, things you're thinking about in terms of long-term organizing strategies and how folks in your community are feeling about this election. So that's a little bit about the call tonight. Thanks for bearing with me, and I'm curious about why you're on this call. So what work you're doing in your communities right now around election organizing. So feel free to drop it in the chat box. And if you can't find the chat box, there should be a little chat thing on the bottom of your screen. There's 3 little buttons that say more, and then there's chat. So if you want to drop in the chat box what you're looking forward to talking about tonight and what you're already doing in your communities around voting, that would be awesome. And where you're from, of course, because we're all from across the state and some of us aren't even in Oregon. So I'm just going to kick it to Emma to talk a little bit about the Defending Democracy Hotline and the STAND election guide.
Thanks, Paige. I'm excited. I'm like, who's gonna write next? I know people have very in-depth plans on the ground in many communities. Wanted to just put it out there from the start that as we get this conversation going, ROP has resources. If your plan doesn't feel like it's totally fleshed out, we can help you figure out what you're going to be doing to get out the vote and make sure everyone stays as safe as possible this election season. We have a Defend Democracy hotline at 541-714-3257. We can give that to you again. Don't need to get your pen out right now to respond to any voter intimidation or interference that's happening in your communities. And we also have election resources on paper social media, radio, the list goes on. So reach out to us if you want support or get those resources. I know a lot of you already have them and are working hard to distribute them. So we're gonna not take too much time on what we have for you, and really are curious what you all have to share with us and with each other.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma. I'm Hannah. So good to see you all. I'm an organizer with ROP as well. Just wanted to give a super quick Zoom tutorial. A lot of you may know how to use Zoom, but just in case, I realize we're in the time of COVID. Many of us are quickly acquiring many Zoom skills. But just on the off chance that this is your first Zoom meeting, a couple quick things about using Zoom. You can mute and unmute yourself either by hovering over, if you're on a computer, your own image, you'll see a little mute button, or at the bottom left hand of your screen, you'll see a little phone icon that says mute. If you're on the phone, you can use your phone function to mute yourself, but you can also press *6 to mute and unmute yourself as well. The chat box, like Paige was saying, is at the bottom right of your screen, unless I've been told if you're on an iPad, then it might be on a sidebar. But you'll see at the bottom, it looks like a little talk bubble. If you click on that, you'll see chat. If you can't see it, it probably means your screen is too minimized. So just expand your screen or look for the 3 little dots at the bottom of your screen that say more and click on that. We use the chat box a couple different times tonight to communicate with each other as well. And then lastly, if you want to change views, right now I can see like many little icons on my screen, all of your faces for those of you who have your videos on, which is awesome because I'm in gallery view, but you can also toggle usually on the top right, there's a little button that says speaker view. If you click on it, it will make your screen just kind of a big picture of the one person who's talking. Or you can click on gallery view, which looks like a lot of tiny little squares, and then that will take you back to being able to see everyone in the room. Just wanted to make sure y'all know how to go back and forth between those. Sometimes it's nice to see everyone. Sometimes it's nice to be able to see the speaker better. Feel free, if you have any other questions about how to use Zoom, throw it in the chat box. Happy to help. As we get into conversation tonight, you're free to use there's like a raise hand button on Zoom, but you're also welcome to just mute and unmute yourselves and chat. And we may have to experiment a little because sometimes it's easy to interrupt each other, and that's totally fine. We'll figure it out. Especially for you folks who are on the phone, please feel free to jump in. I know it can be harder to do when you can't see faces. Awesome. Okay, so good to see you all. I will kick it back to Paige.
Thanks so much, Hannah, for that amazing Zoom tutorial. So a little bit about what to expect on the call tonight. We're on the front end. We're going to have some time to share. Excuse me. On the front end, we're going to use a little bit of the time to share out and amplify some of the work that people have been doing across the state to both get out the vote, who are countering voter disinformation, folks who are distributing stand guides, and a whole lot more. So they're going to share a little bit about their strategies, maybe some of the things that they're coming up across or barriers that they're experiencing in their communities around voting and voting disinformation. And then on the second end of this call, we're going to open it up and to y'all and just have the opportunity to get in conversation with one another, to share about what you all are doing, what you're seeing in your communities, what things you're thinking about in terms of long-term organizing strategy around elections and voting, and how we can really help you as a resource and chat a little bit about the things y'all need on the ground. So we're going to open it up and really dive into that conversation together on the second part of this call. So that's a little bit about what to expect. And now we're going to turn it over to hear a little bit from our local leaders.
Great. So first up, we have Sue from Umatilla County. Sue, are you in a place where you can share with us? We can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh, Sue, I think you're on mute.
Okay, so I have another Zoom meeting, so I gotta get off real quick. But I'm Sue Peterson from Umatilla County. Out here, you know, the orphans out here in Eastern Oregon. And my husband is the chair of the Umatilla Democratic Party. And it seems like I get to be his helper all the time. But anyway, we are doing the postcards that the Democratic Party of Oregon is sending out. And so far, my 27 people, we've sent out over 3,000 cards. They'll go out on the 18th. And we did Umatilla County. We worked on Baker County, Deschutes County, and seems like there was one more. Baker, Deschutes, Umatilla. Anyway, there was one more. So I'm really proud of my handwriters. One of them says, my arthritis is really hurting, but I'm going to get my 100 cards out. So that was cool. We have a group in Hermiston that they cannot figure out how to do the phone banking. So another one of our people down there, they pulled up precincts with everybody's phone numbers and stuff. And then they have been calling individuals in Umatilla County, well, actually in Hermiston, basically, and Umatilla and Eridan. And one of them is, Yvonne is organizing the Hispanics. There's about 5 Latino, I'd say they're in their 20s, that are really hot to call. And so they're doing a lot of the calling for the Latinos. They've gotten little ads on the Latino radio station, free, which is cool. And there was one lady that could not make the, I guess, for the voters pamphlet in Hermiston for council. She couldn't make the money or whatever. So what they did is they're printing out her information, and on your rural organizing project pamphlets, they're stapling it to them. So when they hand it out, they've got her information on it also. So we really are reaching out to our Latino friends. We have so many in Hermiston, and they're really coming on board, which is exciting for us. And that's pretty much, and then I was in charge of all of Biden signs. I had to order those. We got them local. We ordered local here. And we had the regular Biden Harris signs. And then we also made a yellow sign that said BYE, second line was DON. And then had Biden Harris on the side. So if you read it really fast, it would be Biden. So you could read it either way. But I got the signs done and got those all out. We have another young man that's running in HD 58. He just graduated from college, Nolan Bilinga. I don't know if any of you know him, but he's going to be a real hot person in the future. And hopefully he's running against a lady that they're big lamb farmers. And so they've got all the support from farmers and agriculture and all this, but we are on the other side are getting a lot of which is cool, the internet, the kids that know how to do the texting and all this. We're learning all this stuff, not very fast, but we're doing what we can. But Nolan is doing a pretty good job. We've got LeGrand and Enterprise and Pendleton areas, and that's what he's running for. So hopefully we'll make a big dent there. So anyway, that's about all we're doing here. Nothing exciting. Oh, we did do a Black Lives Matter march, and we had 300 in that one. And Brianna Spencer, she headed that up. She's going to be, you watch, she's going to be somebody in the legislation coming up. She's a hot one. We got some hot ones here. We just got to, push them a little bit. Us old farts have to, take a break. So anyway, that's all we've been doing.
Thanks so much, Sue. And remind me, were you also going to share a little bit about the work you're going to do on Election Day, watching the vote count?
Another thing, yes. Thanks for reminding me. I've got all my election observers all ready. We got a schedule for them. And they will not be able to be right there on the floor where they're doing the counting, but they will be on the first floor of the courthouse, and they'll be in the basement, the counters, and be watching on monitors. And I do have them all set up, and they're supposed to report in to me after each shift. Also, I do have people, and I don't really think it's that necessary out here, but Portland seems to think we should have people observe the drop boxes in all these little counties that have the drop boxes. So I've got people lined up to check those out at least once or twice a day. So is that all I told you I was doing?
That's perfect. And I'm really curious after this next little section to hear what other folks think about the safety or the likelihood of intimidation around drop boxes. But thank you so much, Sue. We're gonna go a little bit further west and hear from Brenda in Stanfield. You ready to share, Brenda?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Brenda from Stanfield. Well, I guess now I'm from Hermiston because I moved to Hermiston. But I am from a group. I'm one of the founders of Raices. We started in last year. Yeah, we have a year. We organized in 2018 to get votes on the Measure 105, which was for the driver's license. And then after that, thanks to ROP, we were able to become more of a grassroots organization. We're still not an official organization at the moment. Right now, we had 7. Right now, only 3 are active at the moment. So this year, our efforts have been a bit different just because we're low on numbers with our group. So it's been a little difficult, but we've been organizing a lot online because that's where we tend to get a lot of support or a lot of people sharing our posts. Before the deadline to register to vote, we were posting every other day, reminding people of why it's important to vote, trying to push them, and it's been going well. Now we are working on creating posts about what's on the ballot, so to just get our community more educated, because we know on the pamphlets that are given to us, sometimes it's sometimes people just don't understand what really is on there. So we're wanting to simplify that. We were also contacted by the Democratic Party to help them translate some measures or information that they have in Spanish. So we are working with them. Actually, I think it was Yvonne that contacted us as well. So we'll be working with them on that. We're also waiting for our stand guide from ROP, because we'll be utilizing that more to post our information on there, on our website. I mean, not our website, on our social media. We are also working with Causa, more as a volunteer work with them. We plan to phone bank with them sometimes on a Saturdays, just to get in contact with our community members here in Umatilla and Morrow County. And this upcoming Wednesday, so the next Wednesday that's coming up, we will be doing a Facebook Live with Causa, just to educate our gente, getting them to get out the vote. And we also plan to create a post about what the ballot consists of, because when we were trying to get out the vote in 2018, a lot of them, the people were first-time voters, and they were very confused about all of the envelopes and the things that came in with their ballot, and so it confused them. We created some posts telling them this is what you need, and it was very popular. So we're planning on doing that again, just to help them out with that, and just to explain to them as well that they don't need to vote for everything on the ballot, because that's another thing. We had a lot of questions about that. And I mean, it's great. It would be great if they can vote on every issue on the ballot. And we hope that with the posts that we create to educate the community, they will vote on every measure or every position. But if they're not, we definitely still want them to vote with whatever they can. So we want to let them know that even if they don't vote for everything, they can still sign their ballot and send it. We have contacted Maria. She's running for city council. She told us that she just decided last minute. We reached out to her, asking her, hey, like, what's your plan? We're here to support you. And she was kind of taken aback because she said that she didn't realize how much work she was needing to do. She just thought, I'll just put my name on there and I'll just leave it as that. But obviously she has seen that there's a lot of support, and we want a Latina on the city council. So we're hoping to work more with her. And we've also posted on our Facebook about positions that are open for the committees here in Hermiston. We do have a Hispanic Advisory Committee, and I believe there's only one spot open, and we're wanting more to participate. I might do it just because I wanted to. I applied once, but they didn't accept me. But it's pure men on that committee, so that definitely needs to be changed. If it's not me, hopefully it's someone else who applies, and hopefully it's she's a Latina. And I think that's pretty much it. We wanted to door knock, but it's definitely a risk, especially for the Latino community. So we're just gonna figure out different ways, especially to give out our the stand guides. Years before, we contacted local carnicerias or Mexican stores to hand out the stand guides or have it there at their stores for people to pick up, and that was helpful. So we might be doing that again, but we're still thinking of other creative ways to reach out to others. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was great. And if people want to see your posts, where can they find you?
So we're on Facebook and on Instagram. On Instagram, we're as Raices 541, and then for Facebook, we're Raices, or you can do facebook.com/Roots 541, and I'll leave it on the chat as well. Other thing I just want to mention, I know that there's a Raices in Texas, but we're not affiliated with them. We actually weren't aware of the Raices in Texas until we were set with our name. But the reason why we are also called Raices is because, like I mentioned, it's 7 of us. We all left to college for a few years. We graduated, came back because we wanted to make a change. And a few of us already knew each other. Some of us didn't know each other. I didn't know half of them, or all of them actually. I just met them and recruited them in a way. But yeah, so we say that we came back from our roots, and that's why we're called Raices. So also, I just realized I never said what Raices meant, which Raices means roots in Spanish.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Brenda. And I know a lot of folks are familiar with ROP's stand election guide, but If you're not, Brenda was mentioning our paper guides, which are in English and Spanish. And if you want some to hand out to your community members or drop it carnicerias or wherever else, we do have some left. So reach out to us ASAP and we can try and get you however many you need. And in terms of social media, we're coming out with some social media posts as well tomorrow with a suggested calendar. So if you want to up your social media game around voting, you can definitely find all that. It'll be at rop.org/stand super soon. Great. Okay. So Bonnie Walker, we're moving our way west. Bonnie Walker, you ready to share about what's going on in Bend these days?
Sure. I was actually just checking Facebook to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Well, for me personally, I usually work with the Deschutes Democrats to in their Get Out the Vote efforts. They have one program called the Neighborhood Leader Program, where we usually like knock on doors and get our neighbors to vote. This year's been a little bit different. And I also have, I don't know, I feel like I'm switching my focus. I've also been working with Vote Forward, which is a national, actually, I don't think they're a nonprofit. I think, well, they're a 501c4, so they can do political stuff. And I've been writing letters to people in swing states who are low propensity voters, encouraging them to vote. Oh, and by the way, since you announced me, my pets have all acted up. So whatever you hear in the background is the pets needing more attention.
That always happens to me too.
They're circling right now, so I'm not sure what's going to go on. So I've learned a lot about reaching out to low propensity voters through organizations like Vote Forward and Reclaim Our Vote. And I'm really hoping to bring those strategies to the local level, and I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. Right now, the Deschutes Democrats, you know, everybody's doing the best they can, but they're really just focusing on distributing their propaganda to people who already vote and get them to vote all the way down the ballot, which is a fine goal. It's just, I see low propensity voters aren't really being served. A lot of, you know, people who don't live in traditional neighborhoods, maybe who even just live in apartment buildings, might not be included in the efforts. And so I'm trying to figure out who to work with to make that more accessible for people who might not already be involved in the party, may not already be voting, and you know, just getting people to vote might be more of the priority than worrying about the whole ballot just yet. You know, locally, I haven't seen any indications of voter intimidation, but there is intimidation happening. Unfortunately, the Central Oregon Peacekeepers and Central Oregon Diversity Project were collecting water to bring to the Warm Springs tribe. Apparently they're still having trouble with water. I heard they had gotten funding, but I guess the whole process isn't done yet. They were supposed to be collecting the water at the Bend Habitat for Humanity, but apparently there were some threatening phone calls made to Habitat for Humanity, and they still collected the water, but they didn't want the Central Oregon Peacekeepers and Central Oregon Diversity Project leaders to congregate at Habitat for Humanity. So there was a bit of a rescheduling and a new location. And it was just really disappointing to, you know, that, you know, people who do intimidation were interfering in something like bringing clean water to people who need it. And that Habitat for Humanity really, I know they're not a civil rights group, but it just was really kind of surprising that that's how it played out with them. So I know people have concerns about ballot boxes and stuff. I just haven't seen anything actually happening yet. So I guess we're just sort of organizing and waiting and seeing, and hopefully, I don't know, it could go all well, right? Everything could go just fine. So we'll hope for that.
Bonnie, can I ask a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
For those of us who might not know, what's a low propensity voter?
Oh, sorry. A low propensity voter is somebody who just doesn't vote that often. They are registered to vote, but they don't actually either go to the polling place and vote, or in Oregon, that would be they don't return their ballots. So yeah, low propensity just means they don't have a propensity to vote. They're not inclined to vote. Sorry. We've been using that term so much, I forgot maybe. Not everybody knows what it is.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks, Bonnie. I just wanted to jump in really quickly too in between before we move on to the next person, and thanks so much for sharing that, Bonnie. And I totally know what you mean. I feel like that happens all the time where your group is like using language and that becomes very common. Do it all the time. Emma had mentioned earlier a little bit more about that we have paper stand guides still available. If you haven't ordered yours yet, we can get those in the mail to you, as well as the PDF is available. And I threw the link in the chat box, rop.org. So Nancy Greenman is holding up her paper guide. If anybody can see Nancy's, I love it. Yay! It's so exciting to see it when they finally come in person printed. We're really happy, and I'm already hearing from like some of our World Organizing Fellows are sending them all around the state and like putting them out in coffee shops, and it's just super exciting how y'all are using them. Oh yeah, Jessica says she got hers today too. Amazing. I also wanted to mention, so one of the interesting things about this year too with Stand Guide, due to COVID and the fact that, I mean, obviously you all are still doing so much get out the vote stuff in person and door knocking and things like that, but there's also a lot that's changed this year as a result. Brenda was mentioning how much organizing they're doing online. So we also this year created a couple things I just wanted to flag for you all. That's coming, one thing that's coming very soon, which is a social media guide, which takes like all of the pieces of the Stand Guide, and as well as a calendar. So if you all want to like repost pieces of it, it talks about like how to vote on them, how our network is recommending votes on the different ballot measures, has information about like voter rights, all kinds of really interesting things from the articles and different pieces to share out with folks on your social media pages. And then the other thing is that we're doing a radio Stand Guide this year, which we've never done before. It was so fun, really cool to do. Got to interview folks from the network, fellows, board members, local leaders from Human Dignity Group. So that's super exciting. And so that episode is going to be released very shortly here. And you all can see that too. We'll send it out to you in the link in the follow-up email too. And then we also created a bunch of voting, election engagement public service announcements, or PSAs, for playing on radio stations. It can be posted places as well. The Spanish versions are also little videos, so those can even be posted to social media. So if you want those and want to send them on to like your local radio station to play to help also do voter education work in your community, we have both the full Roe v. Rising episode, which is about 30 minutes, and then the like short little PSAs are available as well. So there's details about all that in the link I dropped in the chat box, but it's also rop.org/stand. So just wanted to flag those tools and resources too for all of y'all who are doing so much amazing voter engagement work right now.
Thanks, Hannah. And now we're going to pass it over to Nancy Greenman, who I'm super jealous already has her Stand Guides. I do not have mine yet, so I'm eagerly awaiting them.
My ballot too.
Wow, you must be closer to the.
So I, until 4 years ago, had not really done political party work. I'd always done community organizing. And I got involved in our community, in our county, Lynn County Democratic Party. And so I did my work the way I would do community organizing. You form a team, you build, you identify your long-term, short-term objectives, you make a plan, you take the plan to the community, they give you feedback, you listen, you adjust, you implement, you debrief, then you make your next plan and do it all over again. So our Lynn County Democrats voter outreach team, which is also the Neighborhood Leader Program and more, has been meeting every week for 3 years. And for the past year, we've actually combined with Benton County, and our outreach has been done together, which has been really fun. Our long-term objectives have always been to build the party and to build community by engaging and informing volunteers, and then who will then engage and inform voters. And our short-term objectives match wherever we are in the political cycle. So pre-COVID, most months, we would hold 2 get-togethers, one in the east part of the county and one in the west. Food was always involved, as was educating ourselves about voting and elections. And we always finished with a neighborhood canvas. We'd go out and knock doors, and in election time, we'd share what we were learning about candidates and issues. And other times we'd ask people what was on their minds. So our volunteers actually come from every part of the county. We really like each other, and we see our time together as mutually supportive as well as productive. So we launched this build up to November 3rd in early February. And then we adapted and adapted and adapted as things got shut down. We moved from in-person to Zoom, and that's actually meant that people from both sides of the county could be together every time. And our Zooms tend to be really fun. After the May primary, we proposed a letter writing campaign. You know, it's like people were doing Vote Forward. We said, okay, we're a red county, let's do it in our county. So what we proposed at that time was, let's write letters. We'll do a pre-printed letter with plenty of space for people to write personal notes, and we'll highlight our local candidates. At that time, that was our state house and Senate and county commissioner. And the volunteers loved that idea. So in July to August, we sent out 5,000 pre-printed letters, each with a personal note about why voting matters, and with our personal contact information, which brought more volunteers. And then in late August, we went back to the volunteers and said, we proposed, I don't know if you can see this, this is all our endorsements on one side, and the other side is plenty of space to write a note. And to write, we proposed some key information about voting. And we asked volunteers, would they up their game, and could we send out 10,000? People were totally, absolutely. So we've continued to gain volunteers, and at this point, it's sent out about 9,000 cards, which is to households, so that's probably around 12,000 voters. And they all have key dates and ballot information included. We wrapped up the slate card delivery yesterday, actually, and today we all pivot to the Neighborhood Leader Program, which is reaching out to be sure voters got their ballots and have what they need to vote. We each have a list of about 75 voters, and we will follow those people through November 3rd. We will be Zooming every Saturday afternoon through November 7th to stay in touch and update each other and adjust our plan to fit the circumstances. And that goes a lot to safety and what's happening. We keep in pretty close touch, and you can tell we've been doing it for years. So we have a lot of trust and collaboration and teamwork built up. And because I've seen many of the personal notes that our volunteers are writing, I'm completely confident that every one of the scores of them would tell you that their work is all about preserving democracy and promoting community health and safety, and am completely confident that if the call came to have a nonviolent community presence in a visible place, that is to go out in the streets, people would do that. We also, as Sue said, have an observation team, and we have a county clerk that would just adores safe voting by mail and adores having people watch the process. So this is hard for him, that you know, people can't be right in the room. But we get to come in about, I think, well, when they start counting ballots, which is about a week before November 3rd. So people will be there in shifts and with lots and lots of safety measures. So, and then with my other hat, I'm part of the rapid response team. So I would say we're probably more ready for outside, you know, action to be part of defending democracy. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Yeah, so I know some counties are rocking and rolling. They have their voter lists like Nancy was talking about and are sending out a lot of information, and other places maybe not so much. Maybe you're not finding a network of folks that are already engaging in that way and are ready to respond if intimidation or anything else does happen. So that's really the impetus for why this dog in my house is super excited. So that's really what pushed us to create this Defend Democracy hotline. We know that so many communities don't have that network already put in place, and other places maybe have one and would love some backup too, and would love to reach out and connect to the network of rural Oregonians all over the state when something or if something does happen in their community. So definitely get in touch if you want to make an election plan, or if you are seeing voter intimidation, seeing misinformation or disinformation spreading. We have a new email, democracy@rop.org, and then the hotline number again is 541-714-3257, and all that's on rop.org/democracy, which is hopefully an easy thing to remember. So we want to make those resources and our network as available as possible, because we don't know what's going to happen, but we want to be there for each other, whatever happens. And with that, we'll pass it over back to Paige so we can get let the fun begin.
Thanks so much, Emma. And thanks to all of the folks who've already shared about all of the brilliance that they are working on in rural Oregon. Nancy shared about collaboration and teamwork that they've built up to make sure folks are voting safely. And you know, you all, like Bonnie talking about reaching out to low propensity voters, you all talked about so many excellent things. And I'm so excited to open up this conversation a little bit to the rest of you. Know that there are more of you who are definitely doing work in your communities around this. So just to kick us off, you know, what work is your community doing that we haven't already heard about? And feel free to just like jump in, unmute yourself at will. We'll try and make it work. Sometimes people talk over each other, but that's okay.
Speaking of talking over each other, did everybody have the pleasure of watching Savannah Guthrie interview President Trump this evening in his debate?
You know, I think I missed that.
Well, it'll probably be shown multiple times, but I had to hand it to her. She was wonderful. She did not allow him to bamboozle her, and she was relentless. She pursued the question.
Oh, sorry, Gary. I think you got cut off a little bit. Gary, I know you're doing work around voter intimidation and outreach in your part of the state. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
I'm from Prineville, and I think it was Bonnie that had an active group of animals, and the cat flicked his tail on the mute button. So that's why I was not able to be heard. Anyway, in Crook County, also known as Prineville, we've sent out at least 4,000 cards to encourage people to vote early and vote democratically. So things are moving along here. We have also been invited by the Democratic Party to be observers at the courthouse before and during Election Day. And that's probably part of why I'm watching this presentation tonight, because I'm a little bit apprehensive that there might be some people who want to come in and intimidate us. I've been set up for an hour. Personally, I've been set up for an hour inside the courthouse at 5 o'clock on the night of the election, and then another hour outside the building where the general drop box is. That drop box is under video surveillance, so I feel a little bit better about that. And the courthouse in Prineville is right across the street from the sheriff's office, so I'm guessing that if there are any difficulties, all I would need to do is either call or walk across the street to ask for sheriff assistance. So all I can say is things are moving along in Prineville. We can expect the best.
Thank you so much, Gary, for sharing that.
You betcha.
I think you bring up an interesting point around feeling a little bit anxious. And I'm curious if other folks are, what other folks are seeing in their communities. Are you talking to your folks in your community about elections? Are there similar concerns that you're feeling? Curious if who else is feeling that. Deb, I know you have been doing some really interesting work, and I'm curious if you might be willing to share a little bit.
Are you talking about me, Deb?
I am.
Okay. Well, I was just going to comment on the voter intimidation piece, because we have a lot of Proud Boy activity here in Clatsop County. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were some folks out with their weapons near drop boxes. So I don't have any special reason to think that, except that they like to parade around with their weapons. So.
Yeah.
What have you seen so far? I saw a little bit in the chat box, but could you be a little more specific?
Oh, so I'm in Clatsop County, but the Tillamook County Democrats had a situation come up just a couple of days ago where calls were being made from a number that was registered to the Tillamook County Democrats, but wasn't actually registered to the Tillamook County Democrats because they don't even have a landline. And Democratic voters were being called and told their ballots were not valid and weren't going to count. So, so apparently the sheriff is looking into it. I mean, it happened to multiple people. That's all I know at this point.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know there's other folks in the chat box who are talking about vandalism to campaign signs. That's really troubling and concerning. Jessica, I'm curious if you would be willing or interested in sharing a little bit about what you're seeing. I know you are been talking a little bit about registering to vote. I'm curious about what that work looks like too.
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. This is my first time really organizing anything at all besides my personal life. But I just know that I really want to help anyone who's able to vote no matter what. I'm in an area that runs extremely counter to a lot of my positions. So it's very quiet work at this moment. But I got my stand guides today, dumped a few off at the public library, and I'd like to connect with some other groups like in other cities that exist in Malheur County to make sure that those stand guides get out. As far as intimidation, it's just the campaign sign vandalism so far, and it appears to be restricted to the presidential part.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I'm curious to hear a little bit more from folks who are, feeling, I'm curious if you all are feeling, and someone raised this earlier, not being super sure about ballot box watchers. And so I'm curious if you all are up on how your ballot boxes are being watched in your election, in your county, and how you're feeling about that. Just curious if others are feeling that right now too.
So Paige, can I say something? And I think many people know this, but if there is anybody in your county who cares that your ballot box is safe, it's your county elections officer. If we know stuff, they know stuff. So I want to also put that out there, that it's not like they're just in the courthouse, with the doors closed, looking at their computer screens. So sometimes it makes sense to ask the county clerks what they're doing. And the county clerks are our employees, and anybody can ask them. And frequently they're really glad to answer the question. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm curious if, if other folks have been in contact with their county clerk's offices and what the response has been like from them. Looks like Gary's shaking his head, yes. Yeah. Yeah. I also am just, I'm thinking back about Deb's response about, these sort of scammy, Democratic phone calls. And I'm curious if Deb, you would share a little bit about, has this been picked up by your local media or what's sort of the energy around it? I think that, a lot of folks are thinking about, maybe in their communities, their local media isn't providing the most, most accurate information about voting. I'm curious if other people are seeing that in their towns with, with their local media. And so I'm curious of what the response has been like, Deb, in your community.
I'm not aware of the local media picking up that story, but maybe our paper is only 3 days a week, so it's possible. And I'm not sure, our radio station may have picked it up. And I'm not sure about Tillamook, which is a different county. So yeah, I don't know that our local paper ran some stories, just kind of feel good stories about voting. The sheriff's situation, I mean, it's an odd situation that Tillamook County is where this phishing, calling, voter intimidation scam is going on, because the Tillamook County Sheriff sent a letter to, working with the Republican candidate for our House District's campaign, sent a letter out on what looked like official letterhead, saying how groups like the ones I'm involved in are dangerous to the county, and that Republican candidate should be elected. So it's a little strange.
Oh, I am so sorry to hear that. That is really concerning. Wow, I wonder if other folks are feeling that or have responses.
Yeah, this is Duncan Newberry, and one of the things that it's crossed my mind a lot as sheriffs, particularly, but police benevolent associations have taken very partisan political standpoints. It's like, if there's a problem, like the earlier commenter said, well, I'll go to the sheriff's office. Well, if the sheriff is now no longer a nonpartisan protector of the rules, but rather a partisan player in the election process, how sure are we that going to the sheriff, with a concern is actually going to do anything? They've learned, a lot of them, not all of them, but some sheriffs and police officers have abdicated their nonpartisan role that they're supposed to have as civil servants for a partisan position, and they've compromised at least my confidence in their ability to faithfully carry out those rules.
Thanks for sharing.
I'll just add too, I mean, this particular Republican candidate, and I'm sure this happens other places, but her campaign literature, along with a sheriff's letter, along with letters to the editors by her supporters, keep reinforcing this idea that the totally peaceable group that I helped found, Indivisible North Coast Oregon, is extremist, it's dangerous, and that's, I think, feeding some of my concern, and I think a lot of people's unease about what's going to happen on election day and after, because obviously from Trump, his supporters are hearing this extremist, dangerous language, and pushing that out into the rural areas just is super unfortunate, to say the least, and feels like potentially even dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry you're dealing with that, Deb, and thanks again for sharing. I think you raise a really interesting point around like this extremist language that's coming out, and I'm curious if other folks are concerned about their local groups being targeted, or what that means in terms of, if it's an obstacle that you and your communities are running into when you're doing this work. We're trying to pull together a toolkit of resources that Emma mentioned earlier. And so it's really helpful just to know, if other folks are feeling this way or concerned.
Hi, I'm Tammy, and I'm from Columbia County, and we have some real similar stuff happening to what she was talking about in Clatsop and Tillamook, where the sheriff has posted some things much milder, it sounds like, than there, but about in sympathy with the Proud Boys kind of thing, and yeah, so. And then we've been doing the protests or the vigils on Black Lives Matter, and we've had some people come up and be intimidating there. So there's definitely the fear here that the sheriff, his ideology supports the conservative Trump voters, and there's fear that he wouldn't be there. We've been talking to support us. We've been talking to the county commissioners also, and I think that's helpful in a way, or we're hoping it's going to be helpful, that we're talking ahead of time, both with the sheriff and with the county commissioners, to say, this is what we need, this is what we're concerned about a little bit.
You're talking specifically about the voting or ballot intimidation?
No, I don't think we've had anything that specific, because those discussions have been kind of a month or so ago around the Black Lives Matter more.
Gotcha.
Can I ask how they went? Like what kind of response did you get when you reached out?
So I wasn't actually part of that. So and so I just did ask about that at our last meeting, and it sounds like there's two women who are sort of leading that up. They're talking now with the district attorney about getting some kind of citizen involvement. I think we're sort of waiting till after the election to really act on that. But they seem to be really positive, feeling like we've got this district attorney who's really wanting to get more citizen involvement in oversight for the policing, for the sheriff's office. And so, but it's just the two of them, and they're kind of like, but we're going to wait till things cool down before we get aggressive with that, I guess. That's all I know.
Oh, it looks like sorry, someone else is willing to. Do you want me to? Do you need me to unmute you? Sorry. There you go.
We had some problems with intimidation and actual aggression at Black Lives Matter events that were held in Florence. And I was a peacekeeper trainer with the Washington Peace Center for 10 years. So after that, I gave an online peacekeeper training for people who were participants in those activities. And it brings to mind the idea that the more training we have in peacekeeping and in working together in demonstrations, and the better we're going to be able to address the potential possibility that we will be there with police opposing us. And I think that we need to be well educated and trained, and we need to inventory our own willingness to put ourselves in that kind of a situation, because that's not a situation where you can ensure your own safety. So one of the things we're all going to have to think about, I think, is to what degree we're willing to take risks to preserve the democracy. And I'm not saying this in the sense of trying to push people, because I really don't believe in that. I think there's a role for everybody, given what level of risk they can and want to take. But I do think it's helpful for us to think about that ahead of time. And so when the day arrives, we have made some decisions about that to the extent that we're able to, and that we have the tools that we need for organizing ourselves and for making peaceful demonstrations. That's it.
Thanks for sharing. And it looks like someone in the chat says they're doing peace team training. So they seem like an awesome connection. And I think that's a really interesting point. I'm curious how other folks are feeling about how they're preparing, both in this moment right now to protect the vote, but what are these things that y'all are reckoning with? What are these obstacles in this work that y'all are trying to do? And how are you thinking longer term? Both to past it.
I think the end of your question cut out there a little bit. Longer term, both, and then it cut off.
Oh, sorry. I was just sharing a little bit about, are folks carrying with this sense of defending democracy, both, in this moment, but also how we can carry the sense of, defending democracy into the longer term, both past the election day. How are folks thinking about that?
So I see Karen and Susan are not answering this. I'm calling you guys out because we're all part of the same group. And what we're talking about is how important it is to think of who your networks are and to get with your networks and be close with your networks. If COVID times are having people sort of drift apart, try to just get back in touch, because I think the more we're in communication, the more we can keep our communities safe.
I think that's so true, Nancy, and I just wanted to jump in for a second. One of the things that I've been reflecting on a little bit is, and after the 2016 election, when, there was like kind of a round of a lot of groups kind of forming rapid response teams, they're really thinking through like, what does rapid response look like, preparing for, increased ICE activity under the Trump administration, like y'all in Lynn County. And it's been so cool to see how you've, taken sort of the basic tenets of like, what is a rapid response team? Like, it's a group of people who are committed to acting, who are in communication and coordination with each other, and like applied that in all of these different moments around like community safety and democracy. And so I'm just really appreciating that. And I guess I just am thinking so much about how, you know, how many human dignity groups in the ROP network, like, are those networks already that are like, you know, in connection, in communication, like, and we don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, we can kind of be thinking about and preparing for a variety of scenarios, but also just really reflecting on, you know, what it means that we have this infrastructure as a statewide network, people who are linked in exactly like you're saying, who can be, you know, kind of quickly mobilized as needed. And then also, like, as a state, how cool it is that we have this network that can also mobilize quickly. I hope I'm not being premature, colleagues, in naming this, but we just talked about setting a date for the day after the election to like get back together in a strategy session as a statewide network to be like, okay, what's happening? Where do we go from here? You know, and to really like assess and start to set a path forward, regardless, you know, whoever is elected, kind of being able to look together at what's going on and make plans to move forward. So I just wanted to name that because I think part of how we're preparing right now and thinking as we talk with you all about like, what do we need is like, how do we stay connected? How do we stay in communication? Because we don't know what's going to happen, but we know that we'll all have each other's backs and act together. So anyways, just really appreciating that and thinking about that a lot as well too, as I'm talking with other folks.
And Hannah actually shared the Hold the Line guide for defending democracy with me, which is a long read, but it does outline a lot, many different scenarios. And so I dropped the link for that into the chat.
Yeah, Karen, have you found that helpful in doing your, you know, your current organizing, or curious to hear how that's impacted you?
Yeah, I think it's been helpful in terms of, for me, thinking for what happens on the 3rd and beyond. I mean, a lot of it is just thinking through scenarios and being prepared for whatever happens and being able to react to it. It's also something that I have had the opportunity to share with friends in other states. You know, I feel that Oregon with vote by mail and Benton County feels like one of the, you know, Corvallis feels like the last place I'm going to be encountering a lot of this. So being able to share it outwards is helpful.
And there is, I'll just mention we're encouraging folks out here to participate in the Hold the Line training. It's a 2-part training that's next Tuesday and the Tuesday after. And that information is also available at the link Karen shared. Because I'll just say, I think that there's a general feeling here, like I think a lot of places, that the potential for intimidation is possibly greater post-election than pre-election in some of our rural areas, especially where we vote by mail.
Can you say a little bit more about why you're feeling it might be more intense post-election versus pre-election? I think I think folks are I feel like I sort of go back and forth on I'm not being sure how to feel about it. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, my sense here, just from talking to people in our groups, is that it's, again, coming from the top, that, you know, Trump calling out the Proud Boys and telling them to stand by, and those folks being very excited about that in our area. So, so for instance, there's also another nationwide effort that's happening is Protect the Vote, which in a lot of places, I know Columbia County for sure is, in probably lots of other places in Oregon, are planning rallies on November 4th if Trump does not accept the election results, if he loses, which he has already said he won't. but in Clatsop County, we're just kind of not sure if we should schedule something like that just yet, because it could be an invitation for trouble. So I don't know what to do about that. I mean, we usually, it's important to get out and exercise our First Amendment rights, but at the same time, with the problems of what's law enforcement going to do? We've already had a situation where one of our folks who's Native American was targeted by the Proud Boys. They came to his workplace. They yelled threats to the window. The police were called and said the Proud Boys had every right to do that. So, when you start to think about that sort of situation with large groups of people, it's just, I don't really know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. What are others, thinking about handling violence, both, at the ballot box, post-election day?
Geneva, I saw you head nodding vigorously when someone said really worried about violence shortly after the election day. Do you want to expand on your head nodding? I'm totally putting you on the spot.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just agreeing with everyone, what people are saying. I guess I should say I'm in Bend, and I'm with the Central Oregon Socialist Party, and a really big goal that we've had going into the election, because we have various members that are actually pretty split around the Biden and the candidate who's running, I think, with the Green Party. But the overall goal has been mostly just kind of like disseminating information that is about general consciousness raising when it comes to like police violence and like Antifa, the history of Antifa, anti-fascism and fascism, and trying to get information out there that maybe people encounter and their ideas about stuff just kind of slightly get jarred or changed, which is not as direct as what a lot of people are talking about tonight. But it does feel like in certain ways, it's nice to keep like a larger perspective in the face of a lot of this stuff, and hope that people encountering some of that information might shift some of the potential for violent situations that could occur, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah. How are you sharing that out? Is it like social media or passing it out to neighbors?
Yeah, it's social media. We're also just like doing a lot of flyering at events and also just around town. And we've done one already, and we're working on a second issue of sort of a digest zine resource where we've put out a call to people to submit their writings and any kind of content. We also, as far as mutual aid and getting organized in the face of some of this violent stuff goes, we have created a map through Google Maps that's just like a mapping out of mutual aid spaces in Central Oregon. We're like in the process of getting that more out and getting more data added to it. But we're hoping that can be a resource for people also going into the kind of uncertain future.
Well, so kind of making the places that we know are going to stay safe in some way or another more publicly available. Are there other ways that people are grappling with, like after expecting violence right after the election, or expecting increased intimidation as we're moving closer to it? Are there ways people are grappling with, like, okay, how do we make things as safe as possible, or how do we get ready to respond? Do folks have an answer for their community about like, do we get out on the streets on the day after, or do we like do a photo campaign, or do we like post things on Facebook, or do we just call all our friends and check in? Like, what are people planning? Or definitely not planning. It doesn't not have to be something specific.
Hey, this is Duncan again. And it's funny, this conversation came up in another context. And the reality is that life is not safe. This time we're in is not safe. But you have to decide how to mitigate your risks as best you can. I understand that. But I think we all have to realize that if it's November 4th and we think the election has been called wrongly and we are afraid to go outside, we get lost. And the possibility, it's just, and at that point, it's not a matter of when we will be negatively impacted by that. It's just a matter of who they get to first. So when we're talking about being safe or not safe, life is not safe. And I try and get this across people all the time, and you need to plan for that. But at the same time, we need to be willing to go out and risk something if we think that situation happens. Now, hopefully, the election happens, what we all hope happens, and everything is fairly peaceful and it all turns out to be talk. But I mean, if you're looking at my picture, you can see I look like a chud, right? I look like a redneck. And so I go out and I work with rednecks and I hear what rednecks say. And they're willing to get violent. A lot of them, not all, but there's a number of people who are willing to get violent. And they've told me this because they don't know who I am. And we have to be willing to understand that. And if we're not willing to put ourselves in danger, I don't really know what else we can do. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Duncan. I'm curious, we've only got a couple more minutes left for folks to share, and I'm curious if, Geneva, you shared a little bit about the Bend sites, and that feels like getting those up so folks know where they can get resources and help. I'm curious if anyone else has a small victory to share about their get out the vote or their voter education work, or something else. I think it's so helpful to hear, what folks have been able to accomplish during this time.
I don't know if it's out of turn for me to speak. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Campbell, and I'm director at ROP. And I'm in the middle of Diaper Mountain right now because we do a twice weekly mutual aid distribution to many families that have many small children, and diapers are a big thing that we do. And I'm sure this has already been named, but just in case it hasn't, part of the conversations that are happening in Cottage Grove just make it very clear that a number of folks of color feel deeply, deeply unsafe. And many are, in fact, kind of in the midst of stockpiling so they can just be inside and at home, working from home, and not going out into public in the next few weeks because of the fear of what it felt like in 2016, before and after the election, and all the spikes of hate crimes across rural Oregon that we saw. And for those of you who weren't organizing then, Oregon topped the charts nationally for the number of hate crimes and bias crimes that specifically targeted marginalized communities in rural Oregon. So knowing that, a lot of folks in Cottage Grove have been doing the work of setting up not only intentional systems where we are checking in with each other. So check mark, that's been named a million times, and way to go. The basic tenets of organizing are there. And not only are folks trying to figure out how to make sure that people vote, because if they're at home, they're not dropping their ballots off. And so folks are trying to figure out, okay, can we go to your house and pick up your ballot for you? And as the process of like building up trust with people to come over to someone's home is also a layer of safety and security of, now I know where you live, and here's my personal cell phone number. And if anything goes down, you call me and I will be there. And so there's that level of like dirt road organizing that is just really beautiful about rural Oregon. that is something that I'm seeing actually provide a lot of hope and frankly break a lot of isolation that a lot of folks who already do not feel like it's safe to be in public are still going to be surrounded by community. And so people are not only just like coming to pick up ballots, but they're also dropping off food. You know, they're building relationships so they can like come by and hang out with the kiddos outside where it's safe to do so from at least 6 feet, you know, that kind of stuff. So I've been seeing that kind of work and, you know, hearing directly from folks who are most impacted by all of this, that it's giving them a lot of hope and re-inspiring them because they are scared, they're terrified. But being able to be surrounded with a growing community of people that they feel like they can trust is huge, especially in a moment that was so like kind of crushing 4 years ago. So just putting that out there because I think it's one of those things. I thought we were doing so good. I thought we were doing so good. And then a number of us got kind of punched in the stomach once we heard from folks directly, like, this is the last week you're going to see me in public because I'm going underground. I'm going home. So at least this way we're keeping those connections alive and building those relationships.
Thank you so much, Jess, for sharing that. I see folks in the chat. Barbara's, you know, talking about folks are doing extensive ballot absentee voting for the first time. That's something we're watching new this year. Nancy talking about, you know, our communities really already having the skills we need to respond to whatever happens on November 4th. And I think that's so true. And I think the folks who've shared already on this call have emphasized, like, you know, we've got networks in place for a reason. You know, we've had these networks in place for maybe not all of us, maybe, you know, maybe they've been more informal, but I think, you know, this is really a moment to lean into one another and, you know, make sure we've got our people together. So we're running up on the end of the hour here. I'm curious if anyone has any last minute, like, this is what we're doing and I really need to share it with everyone before we go things. Any last thoughts? Okay. Well, thanks y'all for being here. I'm gonna pass it on to Hannah.
Awesome. Thanks, Paige. And thank you so much to each of you. Just so appreciate you bringing so much good thinking tonight and for all of your heart and brilliance. And I just know, like, oh man, we are in this home stretch of these last weeks and it's requiring so much of all of us. And I'm just so moved by the ways that you all are showing up to face this and feeling the fear, feeling the anxiety, and like continuing to call on your people, pull your folks together, get prepared, get out the vote. It's just really phenomenal. And I'm so sorry, my video just disappeared if you can see that, but I am still here on the phone. So sorry if my video is cutting in and out. My internet's not doing so hot right now. If you would just drop into the
Hannah, you're
audio too.
Oh, am I back?
Yep. You said if you would just drop into the chat, and we got all excited, but
Perfect.
we're sure what to put in.
you would just drop into the chat, and then I'm just going to make you guess. No, I'm just kidding. If you would just drop into the chat, one thing you're taking away from this strategy session, something you're chewing on, a tool or resource that you're like, we really need this to continue our organizing right now. Kind of anything that's on your mind, drop it in the chat box. We just love to hear sort of what you're taking away or thinking or needing as we wrap up tonight. Also, just wanted to mention again, I know we've been kind of plugging it throughout the evening, but you can go to rop.org/stand. If you are looking for stand guides, paper copies, or the digital PDF, and soon there will be a social media toolkit up there as well. Also keep an eye on RopNet, which is our email newsletter. We keep sharing things out there, and we'll be adding you all from this call if you're not already on it. So you should be able to see it there as well. And we'll share the links out as well in the follow-up email that we send with this recording. And then also we'll include links to all the stuff about Stand Guide, including the new podcast episode, which we're super excited about. And called Blackberries and Ballot Measures. That's going to be really awesome. And info on the Defend Democracy hotline will be there as well. I know some of y'all are mentioning already some of the things that you're seeing that you're concerned about. And we definitely want to be helping to capture that stuff as well and supporting folks in their responses. If you want any support from ROP, we are here for you. Would love to chat through what you're doing, how we can support your organizing, how we can support you in thinking about the ways that you're preparing, both in these final weeks of the election and beyond as well, of course. And I'm just seeing some awesome stuff popping up in the chat box too. Kathleen is saying that she's trying to figure out how folks from urban areas can support. Thanks, Kathleen. Deb, glad there's a November 4th call planned. Absolutely, looking forward to that too. I think it'll be so good for us to get back together in that moment, touch base, figure out how we move forward. Thanks to folks for sharing those resources. Awesome, keep dropping things in the chat box. And thanks to Jared, Kathleen says we're staying up late to listen to the Oregon story. Awesome. Yeah, let us know what you're chewing on. If you want to support all of this incredible get out the vote work that's happening around the state, the resourcing that ROP is providing to our human dignity groups, it takes all of us. We've been around to defend democracy for so long thanks to the generosity and the fact that like ROP is really supported by folks across our network and allies. So if you'd like to donate anything you can give at rop.org/donate. Just wanted to share that as well. Like I mentioned, oh yeah, okay, we'll send out the recording, the links, video recordings. You can also find recordings of prior strategy sessions at rop.org/strategy session. So we've done some really, a series of some really awesome strategy sessions since COVID began around all kinds of topics, including safety and security for organizers, specifically focused around de-escalation during kind of the height of the Black Lives Matter protests. There's a lot in there that may also be helpful resourcing for you and your groups as we're thinking about the possibilities of preparing for any post-election violence that may occur. Okay, I think that's all. Y'all, thanks so much in the midst of so much going on for being with us tonight. It's really such a joy to see all your faces, and we appreciate you so, so much. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good to see
Thanks,
everyone's
everyone.
faces.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
night.
Appreciate
Thank
you. See you
you.
soon.
Get some rest.
Bye-bye.
Bye.